Okay, so I normally give presentation that are like technical, what are stem cells, what they do in your body, and all the science of it. But I think sometimes it does not like really sink in because we don't have the general context of what it means. So I want to spend some time today to talk about the general context of stem cells. You can put everything that you know about stem cells into this greater context, because for most people, stem cells, it's an injection. You go somewhere, you get an injection of stem cells for a treatment, and the questions are really, what's the source of these stem cells? How are they treated in the lab? How are they re-injected in the body? And that pretty much summarizes the body of the knowledge that most people have about stem cells. And the knowledge about stem cells go so much deeper than this in terms of in medicine, but also for what it means in your life. So, as an analogy, just for a moment here, imagine that you forget and you don't know everything that you know about the immune system, put that aside. And then I'm telling you that there's a cell in your body that we can extract from your blood. It's called a natural killer cell, and it will go in your body and it will find virally infected cells and cancer cells and just wipe them out. And there's a new technique where we can extract these cells from your body, expand them, freeze them, and if you ever have cancer or a viral infection, we can re-inject these natural killer cells in your body. I'm not making it up. It is a trend right now. There's a treatment where you can go and get these natural killer cells. Now, so you're interested to go and do this treatment, because who knows, one day you may be facing cancer. Now bring back all your knowledge in the immune system, and you now know that you've had these natural killer cells every day of your life since the day you're born. Every time you've had a viral infections, they kicked in, and that's why your cold lasted only like a week. Your stem cell, your NK cell did the job. Every day, if not every day, every week. Like, it's part of your daily life to have cancer in your body, and your natural killer cells take care of it since the day you're born. Is that changing your interest into getting your natural killer cell extracted, knowing that it's part of your body? It changes everything. That's the kind of context that I want to put stem cells into. Let me show you a video before I get into the detail. This is a video, it's a study that was done about 15 years ago. Scientists took the heart of a mouse and circulated in that heart digestive enzymes that completely digested the heart muscle. So at the end, they're left with just the soft skeleton of the heart. So that the connective tissue of the heart, which still retains the trace that it was a heart. And on that soft connective tissue, they just lay out stem cells taken from that animal. And within a week, you get a beating heart in a test tube. That is the power of your stem cells in your body right now. So to me, the question is much deeper. What is it that makes this not happening all the time in the body? What are the obstacles? What can we do to foster that raw regenerative power of our own stem cells? But I want to put all of this into, I would say, the historical context of stem cells. So about a century ago, 1905, Alexander Maximow had already seen that kind of stuff. He basically said, so he was following in the footsteps of his predecessor that had looked under a microscope to all the lymphocytes in the blood, and they had developed this idea that it looked like, when you look at all the lymphocytes, they seem to be all coming from one mother lymphocyte. So he said there is one mother cell in the blood that is the source of all blood cells and maybe the source of all cells in the body. More than a century ago. But there was no real evidence for it, so this is forgotten. And about 50 years later, in Yugoslavia, there is an accident in a nuclear facility. 6 men are irradiated, and we know from Hiroshima that if you're heavily irradiated, you don't survive unless you need blood transfusion. So they're flown to France, where they're given a blood transfusion with the thought that you will have to give them a blood transfusion every several months. And then they gave one blood transfusion, and suddenly they're all making their own blood. So it brought back this concept that there was a cell in the blood that is the source of all blood cells. And that evolved, and we've known until like early 2000 that there is such a thing as a stem cell that is the source of all our blood cells. During the same time, since the early 60s, the science of embryology develops. So we know that you take an egg and a sperm, you couple them, you get the zygote. It will develop into a lump of cells that are called embryonic stem cells. And if you take these cells and you can clone them separately, you can get 10 of the same mouse, 10 of the same dog. You all remember Dolly the sheep? It's cloned. So many of those took place. We knew that there was a stem cell that was super powerful. If we could harness this power of these stem cells, we can regrow a heart for you, a new liver, a new lung, whatever. So they tried to grow human embryonic stem cells, and nobody was able to do that until 1998. And that was the rebirth of today's stem cell research. The moment we were able to grow human embryonic stem cells, those dreams really came back. But very soon, we realized that the problem with embryonic stem cells is that it is super powerful. It's made to grow an entire organism. So you try to grow a heart, like you inject them in a heart, you get new heart cells, but you get also bone cells, skin cells, patch of hair, all kinds of things. It's a tumor. So there's a super high risk of tumor formation. So the idea was, if embryonic stem cells then are too wild, let's try to go and get other type of stem cells. So let's go and look at umbilical cord stem cells. So now this whole quest to find other sources of stem cells started with the understanding that our own stem cells are limited. They only do blood cells. And at some point along the line, scientists started to wonder, well, are they really limited? So let's try to poke this and research this a little bit more. And over time, it became very clear, your own stem cells in your bone marrow are just about as powerful as embryonic stem cells, with one main difference, which is a great difference. If you take one of them and you put them in the heart or in the lung or in the liver, it will become liver cells, but only liver cells, which is what you want. So there's no risk for tumor formation, and now you really have something that is regenerative. So now develop fat cells, dental pulp stem cells. There are lots of different types of stem cells in your body. But as all of this science develops, if you think about it, when you inject stem cells, the only thing you achieve as an outcome is that you increase the number of stem cells in circulation with your injection. But what was discovered also along the way is that these stem cells are your repair system. After a heart attack, a wound, a burn to the skin, a stroke, a bone fracture, compounds are released by the injured area that will go to the bone marrow, trigger the release of stem cells from the bone marrow. Within 3 to 5 days, the number of stem cells will increase up to 10-fold. On the second day, the affected area releases locally specific compounds that will attract stem cells to the injured area. Stem cells migrate in that area and starts to coordinate the whole process of tissue repair. They are your repair system. So in this whole process, we release our own stem cells. So there's a way where we can increase the number of stem cells in circulation, not through an injection, but by boosting our own release of stem cells. And that can be done just by using the compounds that an injury releases naturally, like granulocyte colony stimulating factor. When you have an injury, you release that compound to trigger the whole onset of the repair process. So let's inject that into animals. And we realize that if you do this, if you take, for example, an animal in which you trigger a heart attack, the animal has all the consequence of a heart attack. Now you take the same animal and you do 2 rounds, 1 round, it doesn't matter. You trigger the release of their own stem cells. Within about a month, normal heart function are regained. Like the animal is normalized. You take diabetes. You generate diabetes in an animal, trigger 2 rounds of stem cell release of their own stem cells from their own bone marrow. Within about a month, these animals are normalized. You take a model of mouse that develop atherosclerosis. After a few months, they develop atherosclerosis. Take the same mouse and trigger the release of their own stem cells. They don't develop atherosclerosis. Same thing with Alzheimer's. Same things with liver failure. I mean, I can go on many, many different types of animal diseases, human diseases, and they're all improved or sometimes simply removed by just triggering the release of their own stem cells. In all of this, what is to me the most powerful and the most relevant is that while the role of stem cells in tissue repair was studied, what emerged out of this to me is the most relevant in everything that we have to talk about stem cells, is that while stem cells will primarily go to the site of an injury, If there's no injury, like every day, right now you're all sitting here and you probably don't have an injury. You're still releasing stem cells every day. And these stem cells will go everywhere in your body to simply replace the cells that are being lost. So one thing that you probably have heard in the past, you have a new body every year, every 7 years, every 12 years. You've heard about these type of statements. They're real, but at the same time, there was no real science behind them. Right now, stem cell research has brought the science behind these statements. The real statement is that everything in your body is constantly in this process of tissue turnover, but at a different pace. You get a new skin every month. You get a new liver every 2-3 years. You get about a new heart, half of a new heart every 25 to 50 years. Traditional cardiology tells us your heart will mature until about 8-10 years of age, and after that, that's the heart that you have. And if you have an injury in your heart, a heart attack, too bad. Your heart cannot repair. And now we know today it's not true. Your heart renews roughly about 1% a year. So think of your body being constantly in the process of tissue turnover, meaning you lose cells, and for an organ to maintain its proper functioning, you need to have enough stem cells to come in and replace the cells that are being lost. It's like your bank account. If you want to keep $1,000 in your bank account, the more you spend, well, the more income you need to have to keep $1,000 in your bank account. As you age, you get more and more loss. So you need to have more and more stem cells to replace that loss. The problem is that you're born with red marrow that makes stem cells, and that red marrow very quickly in our lives converts into fatty marrow that does not make stem cells. At some point in our 30s, we've lost about 90% of our red marrow, which corresponds to a 90% roughly decline in how many stem cells you have in your bloodstream. There's a point in our 30s, 40s, we don't have enough stem cells to offset this day-to-day cellular loss, and now you start to develop deficit in some tissues. It's not bankruptcy yet, it's just a deficit. So what is a deficit in your pancreas? What happens when you lose cells making insulin and you can't replace them? Down the road, it's called diabetes. If you lose cells making dopamine in your brain, it's Parkinson. You lose cells in your lung, it's emphysema. You lose cells in your... Think of any age-related disease. It's always the loss or of a type of cell or a type of cellular function that your stem cells normally would replace. So I published this view about, 12 years ago, that the fundamental cause of disease formation, age-related disease formation, is this slow decline in the number of stem cells. And in that paper, I was saying there's a way to test if this is true. Go count the number of stem cells in the bloodstream of people who have developed various kinds of age-related disease and compare that with the number of stem cells that you find in healthy people of the same age. And there's about, 50 or so studies that have been done since then. And if you look at all of these conditions, people with these conditions all have, on average, 50% or less than the number of stem cells that you find in a healthy person of the same age. So you literally take 2 70-year-olds, one that is healthy, running a marathons and in great shape, and you take another 70-year-old with early diabetes, some dementia, whatever the issue. And I can tell you for sure, one has fewer stem cells than the other. So the ability of having more stem cells in circulation every day basically dictates your ability to repair on the day that you have an injury, but also your ability to offset cellular loss. So basically that means what can you do to put more stem cells in circulation? And you understand now why I'm saying we need to really put the information about stem cell injections into a greater context. It does not mean that a stem cell injection is not relevant. What it means is that you cannot every day go and have a stem cell injection. You're losing cells every day. You cannot go after an intense workout where you've triggered, micro lesions in your body. You cannot go to Costa Rica to get a stem cell injection. You just want to recover from your workout. So my point is that the day-to-day process of cellular loss, where your body needs stem cells to recover, to basically repair, to renew the cells that are being lost, it's a day-to-day process. So we want to be able to find a system, a way to put back in the body stem cells every day. And that's the work that I've done over the past 20 some years has been to find plants that do exactly that in your body. So I did not start by thinking, man, this is cool, let's try to find plants that have an effect on stem cells. It started by working with a plant that you may know, blue-green algae from Klamath Lake. So I was hired in 1995 to study this plant, to essentially document the mechanisms of action, the active compound behind this blue-green algae, because the DSHEA had been passed, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, and the company selling this product needed to have science to back up their marketing claim. That was the aim. So very quickly, I identified the active compounds for its anti-inflammatory properties, its immune stimulant properties, and its properties on the brain. But as I'm doing all this work, I came across people reversing multiple sclerosis, heart disease, diabetes, emphysema, severe emphysema, reverse from a stroke, Alzheimer's, and a lot. So looking at all these cases, at first they were just stories. They did not have really a medical value. But when you get 50 of those, 100 of those, there's a point where it starts to be compelling. Some of them had access to their medical file. So there's a point it became clear this product is doing something real, but the big scientific question was, how can it be that a product, one single product, helps someone's pancreas, someone else's liver, someone else's heart, someone else's brain, someone else's lung? We had no explanation until early 2001, when the science on stem cells is just starting to come out in the literature. So I thought, it looks to me like stem cells are the repair system of the body. So we published an article in the journal Medical Hypotheses suggesting stem cells are the repair system of the body. And in the back of my mind, what if that plant is working by triggering the release of stem cells? Nobody had ever looked at this. So we acquired a flow cytometer to count stem cells, and we started on ourselves. We took a blood sample, counted how many stem cells in the blood, and then took blue-green algae, and then counted stem cells an hour, 2 hours later, because stem cells are a short-term phenomenon in the body. When they're released, they will be in your blood up to about 6 hours. So it's a wave of stem cells that is being sent. These stem cells migrate in the body, do repair for that day. So the moment we discovered that that's how this blue-green algae was working, we spent probably 4 or 5 years to identify the mechanism of action, the active compound, proof of concept, patents, all of that. And when all of that was done, the deep question for me is that we evolved in symbiosis with the environment. It cannot be that there's only one plant having an effect on stem cells. How do you find the others? Well, you ask the question, what has been known over centuries to be associated with a broad variety of health benefits? Let's go and look at these plants. Nobody has looked at stem cells before. Maybe their mechanism of action is stem cells. So if I ask you the question, the first thing that will come to mind, things like medicinal mushroom, goji berries, adaptogens. So we went and we tested all of those. They all have an effect on stem cells. At some point, I had a chance to go to like Madagascar. They don't have, in Madagascar, Chinese medicinal mushroom and goji berry. But they have something from Madagascar that they have used for centuries. So I started to look at that. There is in Madagascar, they have 65 species of aloe. Of those 65 species of aloe, there is one that they have used for century to make a product that they call locally vahona. So it's a little black beads, and when you have any kind of health issues, you go to the local market and you consume these little black beads. They give this to old men so that they can continue to work in their 90s in the field. So we took these beads, we tested them, we saw the strongest release in stem cells. So understanding what it is, now we developed our own harvesting, cultivation, extraction of Aloe macroclada in Madagascar. At some point I'm traveling in China, and I have access to 3 biochemists working with Chinese pharmacopoeia. And I asked them as a joke, so you're lost, you're on a deserted island, and the only thing, you have one plant that you can bring with you. What would it be? Of the Chinese pharmacopoeia. To my surprise, they all said sea buckthorn berry. I really did not think that sea buckthorn berry was that phenomenal. So I dove into the scientific literature, and I did find that for 2,000 years, it's used for disease of the lung, heart disease, cardiovascular, diabetes, and to speed up recovery from burn to the skin or bone fracture. So you look at the spread here, and I'm thinking, that looks like an effect on stem cells. So I went to Tibet, found a farm that is harvesting from the wild sea buckthorn berry. We derived an extract, we tested it, and we got a very strong response on stem cell release. So through this process, we have studied probably a dozen plants. The top 5 plants that act as stem cell mobilizers have been combined in this product, Stem Regen Release. So you take 2 capsules and you roughly double the number of stem cells in circulation. You add, let's say, 10 million stem cells in circulation within 2-3 hours after consumption. So think of what it means. 10 million stem cells, do this, let's say, twice in the day. So it's 20 million stem cells on that day. Do this for a month. It's 600 million of your own stem cells that you have released for about $400. It completely changes the whole paradigm of what stem cells can do in your lives and I am not saying that it replaces injection. I have nothing against injection. Actually, we have a study right now on this product and on stable chronic congestive heart failure. We have one group stem regen, one group stem cell injection, one group both. And what we can say right now, we're working on that publication, is that just releasing your own stem cells every day, on 10 patients out of 10, they all have, after 6 months, normal heart function. But if we combine this with stem cell injection, we get twice the benefit. So they actually work very well together. My point is simply that your own stem cells are your natural repair system, your natural renewal system. And there's a link here with longevity. Because if you study centenarians, you can see many things that they share in common, but there's only one thing that they all share in common. Well, 2 things. They're all happy. But the other thing is that they do not develop age-related disease until a few months before their passing. So anything that will delay the onset of age-related disease will give you greater longevity. So now if you think that all your age-related disease, you develop them because of that natural decline in the number of stem cells, and you can basically compensate for this by just putting more stem cells in circulation, then it becomes a frontline strategy for longevity. Now, once you've released stem cells, and I'll finish with that, there's 2 things that can prevent stem cells from really doing their work in the body. Is that first, and that is something that has always, I wouldn't say bothered me, but I'm amazed that we don't talk more about this in medicine and popular health. You go and you get a blood sample, we analyze what's in your blood, and the doctor will only talk to you, even your regenerative doctor, your functional food doctor, will only talk about what is in your blood. But if that blood doesn't reach your capillaries, it's pointless. It's like having great water into your city aqueduct and water system, but the pipe going to your house is blocked. You're out of luck. You don't have water. It has to go into your capillaries. And we never look at the ability of having good capillary circulation. And it's absolutely essential for delivery of oxygen, nutrients, and cells, immune cells and stem cells. A stem cell can be up to 20 microns. Your capillaries are 12 microns. So we've developed that product to open the microvasculature so that the stem cells that you release can go everywhere in your body. Nitrokinase to increase blood fluidity. Nitric oxide producer to dilate those capillaries. Even though you dilate your arterioles, your capillary cannot dilate if the surrounding of these capillaries don't have flexibility. Bioflavonoids, plant extract shown to really support the environment of these capillaries. And you need to have a good glycocalyx to allow stem cells to really flow easily through your capillaries. So all of these are into one product. The second thing that will prevent the ability of stem cells to do their job in the body is systemic inflammation. Systemic inflammation is noise in your blood circulation. Stem cells are released, and normally inflammation is meant to be a local signal to tell your body where repair is needed. When it becomes systemic, that signal is everywhere, it's noise. You kind of lose, they cannot find where the problem is. If you suppress systemic inflammation, now stem cells are released and they can find where to go. So it's a bunch of plant extract that addresses specific pathways of inflammation, with bromelain that digest inflammatory cytokines that are already present in your body. So the whole approach here and the protocol is that you release stem cells, you open your microvasculature, you suppress systemic inflammation, the stem cells that you release know where to go and they directly go there. So that's the whole protocol. So we have a booth here. If you have any questions, my team will be there to answer any of your question. I'm not partial, but I think it's the best product out there. Thank you. Do we have time for questions?
Yes. Go ahead. You have about 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Yeah. So, anybody have any questions for Christian? There's one. Here, hang on. I'll bring you a mic.
The booth is right at the entrance. Oh. When you come from the main door, it's the first booth that is right there in front of you.
Anybody? Yeah. Christian, over here.
Hi, I have a family member who currently is going through stem cell injection through the nose into the brain for Alzheimer's, an early offset back of the brain Alzheimer's. I'm wondering if this product would enhance the effects of his therapy?
So, if it was not clear, somebody is getting injection of stem cells through essentially through the porous bone that you have at the top of your nose for an impact on Alzheimer's. Would the product help? I don't have any research or data to tell you that it would. Let me give sort of a more general answer. Stem cells do not by themselves have a great access to the brain. But we have an ongoing study now on Parkinson where on so far 7 patients for 6 months, and we have like 30% reduction in motor symptoms, about 50%, 30% reduction in depression, and about 50% improvement in overall quality of life. So we know, and we have seen, and we have published those cases in the scientific literature. Stem cells will migrate in the brain to a small extent and then stimulate brain repair. So I think that there's a leverage here to still release stem cells from the bone marrow to amplify that treatment, but it's not going to replace that kind of treatment. Right now, what you just described is probably the best approach to boost repair in the brain using stem cells. It's just an injection through the... How long does it take for the treatment? It can be impressively fast with that injection. With stem regen release, in the study that we have with Parkinson, we do this for 6 months. The star and phenomenal cases that we've had, the one case that we have published was 6 weeks. But I'm not telling you that everybody is 6 weeks. So normally we give it 6 months to see the full, but 6 months for somebody who has had something for a long time is relevant. And I want to be clear, I am not saying here that this product is good for Parkinson or heart disease. All I'm saying is that think of the video that I showed before. Your own stem cells have an amazing power of regeneration. The problem that you have in your 50s, 60s, you don't have them in your 20s. One of the main reasons is because you have plenty of stem cells in your 20s. The moment you give back your body its ability to repair, your body will utilize the stem cells to do what stem cells do, which is repair. All we're doing is that we're just boosting the body's ability to repair. That's it.
Anybody else? Any more questions? We have a couple minutes. There's a lady at the back. Here.
First of all, thank you very much. Thank you. I wanted to ask if cost was a problem for a patient or someone, what would be the best, if cost was a problem for them, what would be the most effective, best way for them to start a protocol? Like what would be your suggestion for the best thing to start if they were concerned about cost?
Okay. We have had stem regen release, so the main product that I've talked about since, I've been working on this for like 20 some years. So most of the cases that we have reported was just with stem regen release. So if cost is an issue, I would just say stem regen release. However, over the years, we have had many times people who had benefits that are really under what I would have expected. And that is what brought the other products. Why is it that in some people, they don't get the full benefits? And it's clear that if stem cells are released, but you have a chronic condition, that chronic condition, as most of the time, generated or is part of a bigger story of systemic inflammation. And that chronic nature of that problem has created poor microvasculature locally. You still release stem cells, and it's not rare to get people to say, well, I'm taking the product for that problem. I mean, my knees are better, I sleep better, I see better, I can run now, but I don't have the benefit that I'm looking for. And the point is that the chronic nature of that has suppressed the ability of stem cells to go there. So that is why the other products are relevant. So I would say, if you can, do the whole protocol for a short amount of time to just give stem cells access to that area, and then you can revert back just on stem regen release. That would probably be the best strategy.
Love it. Okay, last question. Anybody? We have 3 minutes? No? Okay. I don't know. If I was you guys, I'd be finding a question. All right. Well, Christian, thank you so much. As
so
always.
much.
That was amazing. Thank you.